Hi, I'm Debbie Raymond.
And I'm Bob McDermott. Welcome to Paranormal and Beyond. This is the close of season one for us, Deb. This is our wrap-up show, so we've had a great season. Very excited about it. We've had some great viewers, and interesting enough, a viewer contacted me the other day, and she brought this candle to us. I don't know if the cameras can pick it up, but it's called Haunted Estate. It's candles that she makes,
I
so
love it.
she's going to do one or two for Paranormal and Beyond.
It really is.
Good season this year.
Yes.
Yeah.
It went by fast. I was just thinking that, how fast it went by, and I was just telling you how some people were just getting caught up with us and watching the videos that we put out and the hard work that Art has been doing. They love our guests. They love the idea. They were hoping we would continue with another season. So we want to make it clear we are continuing with another season.
Couple weeks.
Yes,
Yeah, a couple weeks we start season two.
yes,
Yeah.
and we've had a little bit of a break this summer,
Yep.
which has also been nice because
Right.
we've all been able to spend time with family and whatnot. But we're excited to start again, and we have ideas and different programming coming, and
Right.
yeah, it's going to be
And
interesting.
I think this is a good spot for us to take a step back and thank some people that
Yes.
don't always get to be in front of the camera. Art is one of them.
Yes.
Art's our director, and he does a great job. He really puts this all together. We have the
really does.
easy part. We just sit here and chat. But Art has to put it all together
He
and make some
does.
sense of what we're saying.
Yes.
I think the other thing, I'd like to thank the guests here. We're going to talk about them in a little while.
Yes.
But I thought they were all very talented, very relaxed, and very informative. I really was very impressed with our guests this year.
I was impressed as well because we invited guests on subjects that we didn't know a lot about.
Right.
So I thought that was very interesting. Of course, paranormal and beyond. We know all about that. And we had some guests with that, which we loved
Right.
having them on. And then there was different things that were happening that I was just entranced by it and said, this
Yeah.
is such a great idea, or things we didn't know about. All of them stood out to me, not
Yeah.
just one in particular, but they all stood out to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one of the things when I was prepping for this show, I thought to myself, I was thinking, okay, what was one of the best shows we had on it? And I really couldn't differentiate
Right,
between any
right.
of them because they were all so good. And frankly, that was our theory about the show to start with, to inform and educate. And I think they did a great job.
Yes.
Because you and I went into a lot of things like astrology, really, which was a lot of fun, and
You're
not
right.
knowing much about it, and yet
Right,
came out
right.
with a wealth of knowledge. The last group we got to thank, because they really make this possible, is our viewers.
Yes.
And they've been great. We have 700 followers on Facebook page now,
Right.
which is Paranormal and Beyond, a TV show. If you'd like to visit that, give us a like and make comments. We are stepping up in the league now. We have our own, ready for this?
Uh-oh.
We should have a drum roll. Yeah, we should get somebody in here like the kids from the high school band with a drum roll.
the drums.
We have our own YouTube channel.
Yay! I'm so excited
Now, did you
about
get
that.
your check for $50,000?
I did not
Oh, you
yet,
haven't got it
no,
yet? It's
but
in
I
the, I'm
do
sure it's in the
know.
mail. Yeah, I'm sure that's in
I'm
the
a
mail.
huge YouTube follower in every sense of the word, right?
Yeah.
So when I found out like ours is finally going on, I was all excited, so thrilled about it, and now
And
I'm
the
starting to
views have
push
been
it
great.
too.
We've been tracking those. Yeah, they've been very
Yes.
high. And you can view us on YouTube. Go to YouTube and just search Paranormal and Beyond, and all the
And
shows come up.
yes.
So if you want to see season one, it's right there.
Right, right.
One of the things we did this year, we've talked to mediums, we've talked to astrologers, we've talked to Bigfoot people, we've talked to ghost hunters, but we really never talked to you.
Oh yeah.
And she's too shy to say this, so I will.
I really am.
Debbie Raymond is probably one of the best mediums in New England, if not further out. She's been doing it a long time. She has a tremendous reputation at it.
Oh, thank
So I thought maybe we'd take, for our viewers' sake, a few minutes in this show to
Yes.
kind of talk about what you do.
It's
And one of the things I'd kick it off with, I think is always kind of amazing to me, is that mediums really go into a very emotional situation
Absolutely.
every time they go in.
every time.
Because you connect, I don't want to say family members, but loved
Right,
ones
right.
that have passed with their friends, family, and so forth.
Right.
So it's an emotional beginning because they've passed to begin with.
Right.
They've lost somebody. So I know how they probably deal with it, but how do you deal with the emotional
You
roller
know,
coaster?
it's so important. One thing that people who don't know me, I'm actually a very quiet, private person. I do have that kind of wild side that's out there, but when it comes to what I do, I don't announce it off the rooftops, and
Sure.
you're absolutely right. I'm kind of quiet about that. So I'm excited to talk about it a little bit in this atmosphere, so people do get to know what it is like to be a medium. It's not easy. I mean, being a medium comes in many different forms, because not only do we do the private sessions that a lot of people come to me more on to connect with someone that they've lost, like
Right.
you said, a family or a friend or a pet. But a lot of the times there's murder cases and there's suicides and there's missing people, and that also go into all this as well. Then there's paranormal research, and then there's energy work, and then there's house blessing. So it goes in several different areas that people don't seem to understand that. And the energy level that I have to put into it is very difficult, because I'm a single mom. I have 2 teenagers.
Yeah.
I work 2 jobs. So I have to balance Deb the whole time. I'm balancing everything else.
Right.
And that's physically, financially, spiritually, emotionally,
Sure.
to do mediumship work. And the reason why is because I have to be able to remain connected to whatever higher source gives me that information. And if you're stressed out or anxious, depressed, it's very difficult to help somebody else.
Right, to make contact.
It is. It's
Yeah.
very difficult.
Have you ever really had that problem trying to make contact? With
What I do is I've learned. I've taken small hiatuses through the year, which people who know me again know I take 10 to 13 days off a couple of times a year to recharge. It's just like a cell phone where we have to recharge the batteries. I have to do the same thing. Sometimes I have to step away, like just completely from the entire thing. Block it out, however you want to say it, for a short period of time. Because you cannot run on all cylinders all the time.
Right.
And what I mean is, like, there's a spiritual tone to being a medium, that the energy is different, and we cannot do this every single day. It's
Right.
impossible. So I've just kind of learned to manage it. In the 11 years I've been in business, even though I've had the gift since I was 2, and business-wise, where it started getting around and people were talking about it, I gained clientele of over 3,000 people by myself, no website, nothing.
Right.
And that was just word of mouth, and
Wow.
I'm still just word of mouth working. And I'm booked out for a good 6 to 8 weeks, and I just did that based on learning how to compromise and learning how to coordinate and take care of myself, and still manage to have to go through a divorce and raise kids and
Sure.
work the 2 jobs, being a medium, and doing everything that you and I do, you know,
Right.
so it goes out in so many different directions.
Yeah, and I think sometimes that viewers and friends and family too forget
Right.
that mediums and astrologers and ghost hunters and Bigfoot
Yeah,
hunters,
yes.
most of us have jobs, most of us have
Right.
families that we go, so we live a very normal life. And yet then we introduce this other portion into that
Right.
kind of tips the card this way a lot
It
of times.
does, it does.
Now, do you have a lot of repeat clients? Deb?
Oh, yeah. So it depends on how many times I believe it's okay for them to come back. So sometimes they'll go, oh, well, some psychics or mediums say once a year or once every 6 months. What do you recommend? Well, after I get to know the client, even after an hour, I will know whether they should come once a month, once every 3 months, vice versa. And there's also that financial part of it too, because I would never want them to hurt themselves financially.
Money-wise, yeah.
Always coming to see someone
Right.
just to communicate,
So what just give us an idea of what the criteria would be for someone on the other side?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it difficult for them to visit more than once every 3, 4, 5 months or whatever?
It's an energy crisis that
Energy.
we have, and only twice in my 11 years did someone not come through for my clients. Twice.
Wow. In 11 years.
In 11 years. And their track record is because, again, I take care of myself. I know how to implement it. I know how to. There's a little prayer. I call it a prayer, but it's really not. It's like a 30-second little routine I do in my head that kind of clicks it on, and I click it off at the end of the day. So it's just like when someone goes in a 9 to 5 job, same thing for me.
Right.
And it just works for me. And how I got this information is we all have like spirit guides, and it sounds crazy, but we do. And when I was having difficulties and I was feeling really sick and tired and grumpy and irritable and everything, I was saying, hey, I'm going to stop this work. I'm not doing this anymore. And they said, oh, no, why? What's going on? So when I would communicate with those on the other side, they would tell me, well, this is what you need to do in
Really?
order to do this work.
Oh.
So over a period of about 6 months, they would give me little notes here and there, and then once I started putting it all together, it was like clockwork, and I've been doing it ever since.
I get a lot of emails from people, and a lot of times on Facebook, and they'll ask me questions that, I said, well, it's a good question, we'll put it on the show.
Right.
One of the questions that I get asked a lot is, does a medium actually hear a voice? Mm-hmm. Do you hear a voice?
Yes.
So it's not a vibration, it's not a sensation, it's not a
No.
intuitive, I think this is what they're saying, but you actually
Right.
hear the voice come
Exactly.
through.
Yeah.
Wow.
And now the difference in mediums are all knowing. So we know past, present, future. So sometimes people can come in and want to know when their love's going to come in and things like that. But we're also people who can communicate with those who've passed over, or any energy for that sort. So when someone is of a human entity, yes, they have a voice, we can hear them. And a lot of times it's how they also communicate. Sometimes they give us visions, pictures, video footage, energies, like they'll show me the sicknesses, how they've passed,
Really?
things like that. So they are so intelligent that they can do so many different things. So a medium has to have the stomach for this.
Right.
Because if you cannot handle intestinal cancer for an hour, you can't do this job. If you can't handle someone who's been kidnapped and tortured, for 3 days, and she's coming through, it's unfortunate, but these things have happened. A medium can't do this job. So it's like you got to go through the process of what they're showing you. So it does take a certain individual. Is it bravery? I don't think it's bravery. I think it's some kind of strength there, but I wouldn't call it bravery or courage or anything like that.
I think it's a gift.
It's a gift, right?
I think it's a gift. I think it.
Compassion. That's the word I'm trying
It
to
is,
find.
and whether people watching these shows that we run believe this or don't believe it,
Right.
that's certainly their choices. As a believer, I think that mediums give people who have passed the opportunity to reconnect with loved ones. And,
Yes.
And to me, we always say if we had one more day,
Right.
when my brother-in-law was killed 6-7 years ago, his daughter said that, I wish I had one more day with him.
Right.
And I thought to myself, mediums give you that one more day.
Yes.
They
Yes.
actually give you that one more day.
Yes.
In some format. Tell me, one of the things you talked about is people that may have died violently.
Right.
And certainly in plane crashes. We're going to talk in a minute about the Titanic, which I
Yes.
thought, really, frankly, was one of my favorite shows this
It
year.
was
We did.
good.
But when people come back like that, Deb, do they come back in a state of how they died? Or-
Yes. Many times they do share with you how they've passed. It's almost like something where they just need to tell someone. They just want to talk to you. They just want to let you know, hey, this happened to me right before I died. And so I just take it. So no matter if it was a heart attack, for that couple of seconds, couple of minutes, we feel it. So
Right.
it's, we just go through the process. And if it lasts a little bit too long, I ask them to take it away because I still have to continue with an appointment.
Right.
So they'll take it away. But like I said, it's just so done like clockwork. And I have my two guides that work with me, and they also kind of control the spirit as well. So when we've been doing our shows, we've always have energy in the room. So my guides will tell whoever's trying to interfere enough, like she's
Wow.
working, and now we hear the knocking happen, which is pretty
Yeah.
interesting.
just
So do you
heard
see?
that.
Yeah. So just see, and we caught that on tape.
Right.
So that's what I mean. So they'll tell them, hey, she's had enough, she's done. And the other thing that's miraculous about this, because it is miraculous, whatever, however anyone looks at it, we honor everyone's opinion and we respect everybody for believing or not believing. But I got to tell you something, there is something in believing it. There is something for you, because it just opens you up to a whole other world. And
Yeah,
you know?
and I think too that if we go back to the days of the Salem witch
Yes,
trials, which was
yes.
a terrible thing, you could get pneumonia or you could get the flu,
Right.
which they didn't call it that back then, and all of a sudden you were possessed and could very well be tried as a witch. I mean, it
Right.
was that bad. And over the years, what I've seen happen is the scientific community, which we all respect and understand the hard work they put into education, are now starting to
It's so
look
true.
at
It really is.
metaphysical and paranormal situations. I
Right.
just read an article in a medical journal
Yes.
that talked a lot about near-death experiences.
Right.
And one of the interesting things in the article was that they interviewed 300 or 400 people that had these, and they were looking for common denominators. For example, did a majority of the 200 or 300 people say, I walked into a rose garden? I felt I was in a rose, something like that. So they said, okay, well, they mentioned rose garden. How many other people did? And it was amazing in the article how many, 60, 70%, which people might say, well, that's only 7 out of 10. That's a lot.
That's a lot of people.
Had said the same vision
Right.
that somebody across the country they didn't know said they had. So there has to be something
There's
to that.
got to be something to that. And that's why, especially with everyone that we interviewed, there's something common there. Do you know what I'm saying?
That's
so
my
it's
point.
nice for us to hear it and go, okay, so we're not the only ones.
Right.
We weren't the only ones who had this experience. Someone else had the experience. So it makes it very exciting, you
It does.
know? And it also shows us, too, that we are not in control.
Right.
We are, as much as I would love to say, I am in control with what I do, I'm actually not. You
Right.
know, there's someone else that it controls it.
Right.
And then it goes into saying where, I'm not sure if I wrote about this before or not, but I was, a couple of times, I was working so much that I was getting sick. And I was like, okay, no, I can do it. You know, I can do it because I'm the sole financer person in my family. I can do this. And then I feel myself losing my metabolism. I'm getting really sick. I feel like I got the flu. I'm vomiting, throwing up. I'm got the fever. Everything's happening. But I'm still going to work, right? So I'm still going to work. And so that was going on. So the night before, I was like, okay, so I have 6 appointments tomorrow, blah, 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 blah. And I'm going through my day. And my guide said to me, you need to cancel. And I said, nope, not canceling. I said, I'm going to get some sleep, you know, have a coffee in the morning, I'll be fine. The next day, I woke up, could not get out of bed.
Couldn't get out of bed.
Lost my voice completely gone, my voice. And so I'm going, okay, well, what I do for work, I have to speak. So now they took away my voice completely.
Right.
They're like, you know what? You didn't listen to us. So now we're going to make sure you don't get out of bed, and we're going to take your voice away.
So I think this probably happens. That
Yes.
higher power said, okay.
It's so
what we
true.
do now is we take the voice away from her where she can't do.
Because I wasn't listening, and this really happens. You know, this
Yeah.
happens in life, and it's like, I can't believe this happened to me. And because I'm spiritually connected, I knew why they did it. Do you know
Right.
what I mean? Because I didn't listen, and they kept telling me, okay, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. Well, I ended up going in the hospital for pneumonia. What else did I have? I had pneumonia. I had something, it was all chest, like an upper respiratory issue. I was sick. It was
Right.
bad. So,
Right.
yeah. What was interesting was when I got out of bed that day, because I can see them too, being a medium, you can see people. I saw my guides literally like almost pick me up and brought me to go brush my teeth and get ready. And I saw them behind me like,
Wow.
what do we say? We told you. I had to cancel everything for 2 weeks.
Wow.
So do you see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
if we just listen to those little signs sometimes,
Sure.
they're warning us that something's
Well,
going to happen.
I mean, let's
Yeah.
face it. There has been plenty of documented stories of
Yes.
people that were flying a day.
Yes.
You know, 9/11, what a terrible thing. We keep those people in our hearts all the time. But
Every day.
there were many stories of 9/11 of people canceling their flight that day,
Mm-hmm.
saying, I just had a feeling. My mother didn't want me to
Yes.
travel, and I canceled it. She was so upset about it.
Right.
And you wonder how many poor people on that flight went to work at the Twin Towers. Their spouse, mother, father, brother said
Right.
to them, don't go in today. I just got a bad feeling about that.
Yes.
You know, we pass those feelings off like
Yes.
it's, you know, that's
Exactly.
nothing. But when you step back and think about that, and that's really what I think this show should be all about, is getting people to open up and think about this.
Right.
You know, if you don't believe in mediums, then you need to come on the show and tell us why.
Right,
Because I'd love to
right.
hear the other side of the argument. I truly
Right,
would.
right.
And we'll respect your decision. You know, let's just chat about it. But if you've never been to one,
Then how do you know?
how do you know?
Right, right.
I mean, how do you just
exactly.
sit back and
Yeah.
say, I don't believe in it?
Yeah.
You know, if you've never been on a paranormal investigation, like you and I did at the Sandow
Yes.
Meeting House,
Yes.
and heard Goody Cole respond to us verbally, how can you say I don't
Exactly.
believe until you go?
But what you said though is so important though, Bob, is a lot of people need to have an experience in order to say, this happened to me, now I'm a believer because this happened to me.
Sure.
Sometimes it takes 2, opportunities for
Right.
them to go through something, or 3, and they're still cynics.
Right.
But I love cynics. I love them because, and a lot of times I'll have some new people who will come in and they'll go, I'm not really a believer, but I say, okay, good, sit down. And I'm just like, I'm totally fine with
Let's
it.
talk, yeah.
And or sometimes at the end of a reading, I will hear, I came in here very close-minded, but what you did, there you go. So
Right.
I get it both ways, and and to me, it's like great. I want them to sit down in the seat.
Yeah,
you
see,
know?
I think mediums have a really tough job.
Yes.
And I think where it lies is that your facts, your
Yes.
facts checking is either real or false.
Right,
You either hit it
right.
or you don't hit it. You know, so
Yes.
people have to walk out and say, "My God, how would she know that?" I'm going to tell a quick
Right.
story here
Yes.
about you. When I first met Debbie, no, it's not one of those stories.
Oh, okay.
When I first met Debbie, within a week or 2 weeks of
Yes.
our meeting, we did a paranormal investigation at a dance studio. I don't know if you remember
yes,
this.
I do.
This goes back quite a few years. And we were sitting on the floor, you and I were talking, and you
Yes.
said to me, "Do you mind if I do a reading on you?"
Yes.
And I said, "No, go ahead." Now, you didn't know, you probably knew my last name, but barely knew that. We
Right,
had just
right.
met a week, two before that. And you said to me, through some things, and then you said, "There's a person coming through, and the name I'm getting is Paul,
Yes.
and this will become important in a minute." And you said, and they're pointing to their chest area, their head area, and, up
Yes.
high, and they went through a lot, and they just want you to know that they're very happy right now. We went on a little bit beyond that. But the important part about it was that you could sit back and say, "Well, she picked the chest area. Probably most people die
A heart attack
in that
or
area.
something,
They
right.
don't die from a bad knee most of the time.
Right.
But the thing that nobody could explain is that you used the name Paul.
Right.
And I had a year before that lost my cousin, Paul.
Yes.
Who was in his 70s at the time. He died of a heart attack.
Yes.
Okay. And you said, "No, it's not." The weird
I
part
do
about
remember
it
this.
is it's not a man, it's a woman.
Yes.
It's a female, but the name is Paul.
Right.
And the long and short of that story is that my mother-in-law had passed 6 months before that.
Yes.
Her name was Pauline. Now, within the family, I was the only person that called her Paul.
Yes.
I mean, my wife used to say to me, "I wouldn't do that because nobody calls her that." But I did, and she loved it. It was
She
a nickname
loved
that I
it,
gave her.
yes.
But it was Paul. And she
Yes.
died of congestive
Congestive
heart failure.
Yes.
And within the last 2 minutes or 3 minutes, she suffered tremendously. Okay?
Mm.
So the chest area was it.
Made
And she
sense.
said, "I want him to know I'm okay now," because I was at her bedside when she passed. So,
I didn't know that.
yeah, I tell this story
that's
all the
nice.
time because I would tell you, just stepping back from the experience, there was no way you knew that.
No, I didn't.
I mean, there was absolutely no way
Right.
that you could have figured that out.
Right.
Because
again, female, Paul, but that was how she was coming
different
through. was
last
Paul.
name, her name
Yes.
was Keen, just a whole
Yes.
different last name, my wife's maiden name. There was no way you could have done that.
Right.
And I tell this story all the time, and I say, you can believe, you cannot believe. Because
Right.
my role isn't to convince you.
Yes,
Okay?
right,
Well, my role is to open it up, that you start to say, "Wow, let me go check this out."
Yes, yes, but your wording is also very important too, because it's not my responsibility to convince somebody.
Right.
I just give what I am given, and I give that to whoever I'm working with, and that's it.
Right.
So you can take the information and make with it what you will. I always do the 110% of what I can do, because keep in mind, sometimes it comes in fuzzy too. It's like an antenna.
Sure.
Just like when you lose signal on a TV, it's the same thing.
Right.
So you just take what you got, and I don't want to say all the time, but many of the time it is correct. So
Is
so
it fair
it's
to
good.
say that you really don't control
I don't?
or manipulate what somebody on the other side has to
No,
say? I mean,
no.
you're taking the information they're given and passing it along, and it may or may not resonate
That's-
with these
that's
people for
right.
whatever reason.
Right.
You do, but you can only take that information and pass it through.
Exactly.
Right.
So a lot of times, like an example of say if a Richard's coming through and he's showing me roosters, and I have no idea why he's showing me roosters, but then one rooster runs away and he doesn't come back because unfortunately a wolf gets him, a coyote gets him. This actually really happened during one of my sessions. So of course the person goes, "Why is he bringing up the rooster for? I want to talk to this person about," and I'm like, "I have no idea. Do you guys have roosters?" And she says, "Yes." I'm like, "Okay, that's what he's
There you go.
doing." Yeah, that's
It's-
I was like, and you lost a rooster? Yes, I did. Okay, that's what he's mentioning. So like he was there
he's telling
while
them-
the rooster walked away, got snatched by the
Yeah.
coyote wolf, however you want
Yeah.
to say it. I have no control over it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But it's
yeah.
like, but they'll just talk to you about random things sometime where we have no control over it. And I just have to laugh, you know?
Debbie,
Yeah.
before we get to Titanic, because
Yes.
we need to talk about that again, that book was just a fabulous book.
Thank you.
Where can people get a hold of you?
So, Deb Panett at Comcast.net. So it's DEBPINET at Comcast.net.
Okay, and we'll mention that throughout
Yes.
the show so people can reach you. Titanic,
Yes.
you and Bonnie.
Bonnie
And she
Moreau.
was a great guest.
Yes.
You wrote a great book. It's a book that, to me, tells the other side of the
Yeah.
story that has been told for over 100 years now.
Right.
But it tells the other side of that story. And it tells the story from the side of people that didn't make it.
Right.
And, thank God a lot did, but there were more that didn't.
Right.
So tell our viewers again, bring us back to the Titanic.
So how this happened was I was already working with Bonnie on a few projects, and she had just one day come out and said to me, could you just conjure up anybody? I said, well, I wouldn't say conjure, but most of the time when I ask for someone, they come, and that's really how it happened.
Yeah.
And then she says, okay, so could you ever bring up anyone from the Titanic? I said, well, I don't know, I don't see why not, because if I'm still respecting those passengers, just like I would any client, there's no reason why they can't come. And I've also worked with people who are what we would call celebrities, from national hockey teams to football players to NASCAR, so many. Their family came, so why wouldn't the Titanic come? So then I'm thinking to myself, okay, we can do it. Well, as soon as I had went home, we already started having things happening at my house where water was, visions of water were coming down from the ceiling. My kids were witnessing it. Dreams were being had from my son where the passengers were going to him. It was just almost out of hand, where I said, okay, I guess we need to write the book. Because I told her, let's put it off for the summer, and then, let me deal with the summer, and we'll start writing in the fall, whatnot. No way. Like, immediately, we started having things going on that we just can't explain
Right.
between myself, Bonnie, and my kids.
And
So,
there was one main character,
Luke.
Luke,
Yeah.
that pursued this.
Yes, he did.
With vengeance, we should say.
He did.
But he really insisted
Yes.
on you writing this. And he
Right.
kept coming through every time you
Yes.
backed off a little bit. He pushed you a little harder
That's
to finish
correct.
it, correct?
Right. Yeah, he did. Because here is someone who's on the other side who just said, no, we got to tell this story. We have to tell the story. Well, we told the story, and keep in mind, I was still the mom and working my other job and keeping the business and this and that. And this guy wants me to just sit there and write a book. And I'm like, this is how? Like, do you want me to do this? So, how can you say no when you see them and you roll over on the side of the bed and there's 4 people standing there from the Titanic? How can you say no when you're brushing your teeth and you look over and they're right there? It's like, it's one of those things when you just can't say no, and you
Right.
just write down what they're showing you. And one day I'm just filing in my office, and one of them comes and swoops the papers all over my floor to get my attention. So it's like,
sure.
how can you say no? So I ended up, whatever visions I had, I was writing them. Bonnie was having her experiences. My children had their experiences, and it just ended up being a fantastic book. And we're not done, because they're now pestering my son. And my son is
Really?
getting all these different visions happening, and I believe him, because people go, why does she believe him? I do believe him, because
Well, that
that's
was
just the
for
way we
sure.
raised
You know
him,
that.
right?
But and it was even to a point where not only did Luke, God
Yes.
love him, God rest his soul.
Yes.
Not only did Luke want you to write the book,
Right.
He did things that pushed you in the direction of the way he wanted the book written.
Yes, we
You
had
told
things,
the story about
Yes.
transferring notes and so forth.
Oh yes,
right?
we've had things disappear, paragraphs completely being
Because
erased.
he didn't want that.
Nope. And then we had to rewrite things like all over again to specification. If I would send something to Bonnie, some of it would be deleted, vice versa. So all those things happen, and it was not technical, because here I have an iPad, an iPhone, the laptop, and it would all be distorted in one way or the other
Wow.
every time we sent it.
Now the name of the book again was.
It's Intentional Spirits, and
Intentional
in
Spirits.
parentheses, it's voices from the Titanic, so people would know like what intentional spirits means. Intentional meaning we intended to bring them through, and we did.
Right.
So, yeah.
And if they go to your website,
I don't have a website,
well,
so
your
yes,
email. If they
yes,
send you an email, give
yeah.
your email address again.
Deb Panett at Comcast.net.
.net.
Yes.
And you can
so-
direct them where they can
Yes.
find the book. It was a fascinating book. I read it.
It's very sad. It's a very sad book.
Oh, it's a very sad book.
Yeah,
Because
it
again,
is.
it tells a story that has never been told.
Right.
I mean, that's what makes the book so unique, is that I've never heard a story told about the Titanic from the other side.
Right.
And there's been hundreds of books written about the Titanic. And unfortunately, like history books,
Right.
there's only so much can be written.
It's
right?
true.
I mean, because once somebody puts it out there in print, it's a matter of repeating
It is, and that's what I found is because I'm also a history buff of where I would read about the Titanic a lot, but most of what they wrote about is kind of everything we've seen on TV.
Right.
Repeatedly, that's what they're writing about. Well, we wrote about
Right.
the people
Yeah,
and what
exactly.
happened before, what happened during, what happens after.
Right. And
you
there's
know,
all
to
kinds
them.
of subplots
So good
in that
yes,
book.
Yeah.
The African American that was.
Oh my gosh,
the
she was the
waiter
one who
and-
swished
yeah.
my papers off the desk.
Yeah, I mean that was just that portion of
Yes.
the story. The part of the story was
Thank
fantastic.
you.
So
I appreciate
you
that.
did a great job. It's a great
Thank
book.
you.
So we're going to see a sequel to that book.
Yes, so eventually we want to do a part two. We wrote a script, so we're trying to sell the script right now to TV execs or anyone who's interested in publishing it. So it's looking into going into scripting right now. Yeah, we finished a script about a month ago, and we're just starting to market
Let me
it.
just ask you one final question.
Yes.
You said that they're now coming through to your children. I assume
Yes.
both children.
Right.
Does that bother you at all?
No, it
that
doesn't
They're reaching out
because
to the children?
no, it doesn't. My son, he's so amazing. I try to tell people that we have to be open with the kids about what I do for work. You
Sure.
know, because I first ran the business out of my house for almost 9 years, and it was legit. And I just they would be involved, you know, between the classes and the events we would have in there and everything. My kids knew about it, so I would talk to them about this. How people talk about the Patriots. I have to joke about that. So they're very educated on the subject, so I'm not afraid of it at all. But where the kids are concerned is like if I'm really busy and my clock is off, like I explained it to you earlier, I don't let anyone come in just because I'm off for a little bit. And so then they'll go to the kids, and so then they'll show the kids things instead. So then I know I have to really, they're lighting a fire under me, you know, to get things going. But Christian has had 3 experiences in the past week and a half
Wow.
with Titanic spirits.
With
So
Titanic?
I'm like, I know, guys, we're working on it. So we don't know if it's coming, like if where the script is going to sell, or if they just want us to write another book.
So will the kids collaborate
you
on this
know,
book?
they were in the first one too.
Oh, they
were in
were?
yeah,
Great.
they were in this Titanic book. So yeah, it was interesting.
Well, that was a great book, and I
Yeah.
recommend that to
Thank
all our
you.
readers. In the way of running down our first season, you know,
Yes.
we went into this, you and I, we talked about this for a long time, and the key to this whole thing was to give a voice to the world of paranormal, but we didn't want to just put it under a paranormal umbrella
Right.
that said, well, that's mediums and that's ghost hunters and that's the end of it.
Yes.
You know, that was your idea of paranormal and beyond.
Yes.
So the beyond part of this could encompass astrologers, and we had the
And
the
UFOs,
vibrations
aliens,
from Energy
yes.
Works, which was a great one.
great.
So we stepped out of that. We had Ann Werkeler on from
Yes.
New Hampshire Antiquities, and she talked about the stone structures and stuff like that. So I hope that the show broadened out enough that we did get outside of
Mm.
just ghost hunters. I think the first group we had on was probably Northeast Paranormal
Right,
Associates, right?
yes.
We went right with that. And they did a great job, and at the same time, they were doing the Raymond Historical Society.
Oh, that's
And if you're
right.
in, we ran a show on
Yes.
that, and they had a lot of activity in that building.
Yes.
And I think that it was interesting that Northeast Paranormal, you know, was the first group to ever do an investigation in that building.
Wow.
It had all kinds of hits and stuff, so it was
Yes.
real pretty cool. But, you know, the other one that we did that comes to mind is Bigfoot.
Yes.
And I was talking to Art off camera before we started, and Bigfoot has one of the highest interest levels
Oh yeah.
of even UFOs. It's a
Right.
little higher than UFOs. So it's interesting to me that Bigfoot, is it paranormal? You know, I'd argue it probably isn't.
I don't
it-
think
it
it's
probably isn't,
paranormal,
'cause it can be
but
explained.
Exactly. It's something that's not explainable.
Right.
And we're still as human species, trying to get educated on the subject.
Yep.
Which is why we wanted to do this show in the first place, is to educate people on things that they just don't have a lot of information
Right.
about. So I'm hoping that we had broadened that horizon a little bit more for everyone to see and made it interesting for them. But I also think that we bring, a compassionate side, but we also bring like this logic versus, realism to, like, there's so
Right.
many different angles that we're bringing this to,
Right.
where it's okay if people are questioning it. We want them to question it,
Correct,
because
yeah.
we're questioning it ourselves, so.
Well, and I think Jason Morse did a great job with Bigfoot, explaining
loved it,
and,
yes.
telling us how he thinks. There's one right in his town.
Right,
And
right.
we may or may not be going to do a remote out there on
Yes.
that. So it's interesting to think that it has that much interest in the view out there in the public.
Yes.
And yet here it is right here.
Right.
It's not other places. The other one that comes to mind that I thought was a real good show was Susan Ackerman with the
Yes.
astrology.
Yeah, that was great.
And that comes into this again that you say, well, astrology really can be explained. I mean, it's the stars. They've been measuring and everything for thousands
Gosh,
of years.
yes.
And yet there's the paranormal side of it that you say, wow, how does this work? Because
does
she
this
did my
work?
chart.
Yes.
And she was so right on target,
know,
even for
yes.
some things that happened weeks later, that she
Yes.
was right on target.
Right,
So I
right.
thought that was a great one, too. What would
It
you
was-
say
It was a great one.
was your favorite show?
I loved all of them,
All of
and
them,
I did.
yeah.
I really did.
Had to pick
I
one.
truly loved all of them. I can't say that I enjoyed one more over the most. I think, like, I can. If you said which one were you more emotional about, the Titanic one.
Titanic was very
and then
emotional,
the one I
yeah.
had most fun with was with Lisa Olette, one of our very good friends that we've worked
Yeah,
with in the past.
and
So
Lisa
much
brought a
fun.
whole different dimension
She
to
did,
that.
yeah, she did.
Because she's what they define as more of an
She's
angelic
a psychic, yeah,
medium, but a
yes.
psychic to
right,
boot, right?
Right.
And what is it now? You guys told me this 2 or 3 times. You can be a
Yes.
medium and a psychic.
Right, but you can't be a psychic and a medium.
A psychic,
right?
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
she prefers not to speak with those on the other side. However, sometimes they do creep in, into her reading.
Right.
But she more rather work with a different dimension, which is the angelic, and she does a very good job. I mean, she's the only reader that I love to go to because we're confidentiality and whatnot. And we've worked with her in the past, and she is full of information about protection and keeping safe, and just a really great individual.
Yeah,
And,
the other group I was thinking about last night was Seacoast Saucers.
Yes,
out of Portsmouth.
I love them.
You
that
know,
was
they
great.
they bring a whole different perspective of UFO
Yes.
investigations, and that is that they deal with people that have had experiences. I mean,
Right,
they have this
right.
focus group that they now do in Stratum.
Right.
And, you can go in there, there's no fee, I don't think, to
Yes,
get in.
yeah.
And you can actually sit with other people that have had UFO
Right,
experiences and
right.
kind of chat about it.
I found them very professional.
Yeah, they were.
I thought they were very professional, and had lots of information. They knew their historical background. And I was in awe about that.
Right.
Sometimes, we have to have notes to know all this background. They just knew, like, off
just
the top of their head. So I knew they were the real deal.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and Jason, I knew he was the real deal. So it was the energy work that we had done as well.
Yeah, that was really a different one for
Sharon,
us
yeah.
because I don't know where you'd put what she did, whether it's paranormal or it's not.
Right.
Because it's a biofield adjustment.
Yes.
And she worked on Lisa.
Yes.
Right? And Lisa had some
was so
experiences
good, yeah.
days afterward and so forth. But it was interesting to me to see how she used that 3 to 5 foot radius around
Right,
everybody.
right.
And was able to draw out the bad energy.
Right.
Which you and I have talked about a lot, and that's one word that seems to be common to almost everyone we had on the show this year.
So true.
Was the word of energy.
Energy,
Somewhere
right,
it comes
right.
through. The other one was spirituality. Which,
Yes.
frankly, having been just on the ghost hunting side of this for 10 years,
Right.
I didn't hear that a lot. I
Right.
really didn't hear spirituality a lot. But when we started the show, it was kind of like, wow, the UFO people talked about spirituality. Mike Stevens and Chuck.
Yes.
I can't remember Chuck's last name,
Yeah.
but Chuck talked about the spirituality of the feeling and of the experience.
Yes.
And then
Credo,
Sherry
credo.
Camo from Energy Works
Yes,
talked
yeah.
about the spirituality, the higher being.
Right,
wh-
right.
which to me was interesting to sit through all these shows and say, wow.
All different shows.
All different
and,
shows.
And where I'm saying too, the energy, spirit guides, this, and it's
Yeah.
like, okay, there's got to be something with this.
Something
there's
there.
got to be something with this,
Yeah,
that goes together.
Yeah, Yep.
And you know what? If we sat here and asked questions about it, we'd be here all day.
Oh, sure.
So all I do is I just kind of go on with it. I take my experiences, and sometimes I go, "Wow, I can't believe we just did that," you know. And then other times I'm going, "Oh wow, that was easy. That was difficult." So we're only human, you know. We
Right.
go through these things like everybody else, but there are times when you just got to say that was awesome.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And you know, it really leads us to season 2, which
Yes,
I'm so
I'm so
delighted we're kicking
excited.
off. We've been brought back for season 2. And I know this is really going to be really good. And we're going to
Yes.
kind of roll out some stuff here in a few minutes to our viewers that haven't really been firmed up yet. But one of the things we're going to do in September on our first show is to have a roundtable discussion.
Yes.
Bringing in, I think now, 4 or 5 experts from different fields.
Right.
Astrology, energy works, mediums.
Yes.
Lisa's
Yep.
coming back. Mike Stevens is coming in from the UFO side of it. And while we were looking at the show, we said, okay, so what's the one word or 2 words or 3 words that each field seems to mention when
Right.
you're talking to them, and not to each other?
Right.
And what came up was spirituality and energy again.
Yes.
And I thought it's interesting when
In
we
dimensions.
get
Dimensions.
in dimensions
Yes.
and higher beings,
Yes.
which interests me because when you say to somebody, and we're going to talk about this on our first show in depth, tell me what your higher being is.
Right.
What is that?
Right. Because everyone has a different answer.
Everyone has a different answer.
Everyone has a different
So we're going to
answer.
see if we can get everybody talking about that and bring that to some definition to
Yes.
say, well, the one thing that's common, whether you call God,
Right.
Buddha, any of the names that are out there, it represents a higher being to what you believe in.
Yes.
Whatever you call that higher being.
Right.
So I think the first show, what we do, it's a 2-hour show.
Yes.
So it's going to prove to be very interesting because this common denominator that I think will surface with all these
Right.
groups.
I'm hoping too that we've talked about having an audience because I know quite a few people. So that would also almost be great if they sat there and listened to it and like we could answer questions that they have
Right.
as well.
Yeah, no, I think
to
that's
the
a great idea.
individuals,
We've
yeah.
talked about that with Art, and we'll get together next week
Yes.
and lock this up. But I think an audience is a great thing.
Yes.
Once we work out the logistics of how to do it, because I think there's people sitting at home watching these shows
Yes.
that would like to right now pick up the telephone and ask
It's-
you a question.
You're right.
And,
right.
and I'm convinced that would be a very informative, educational question they ask that we haven't come up with yet.
Right.
So we kind of shut that out by not having that contact.
Yes, and
So-
we want the contact.
We
with
want the contact,
viewers.
absolutely.
We want contact with the viewers and the audience and people, on social media.
Yep.
We've been wanting that to get feedback on it.
Right.
And I think because we're interactive, we don't want to always
Correct.
be closed in a box, which leads to the next thing is we want to do remote shoots.
Right.
Some of our favorite places that we've done investigations at, and
Yeah, I think remotes are going to be really a lot of fun because I think that we can sit here and discuss these things.
Right.
And people can say, wow, I didn't know that, or I didn't know that. But when we take them out into the field and we actually see what's going on,
right.
it gives them so much more to look at to say, wow, I didn't realize what you meant by that when you're on
Correct.
the show. I was saying to Art earlier, we have been offered a place in Haverhill to do a remote. It's called the Dustin House. And the very quick story of the Dustin House was that there was a mother and a child abducted by Indians.
Have we been there before?
You and I've never
Okay,
been
I was
there.
like, I've been there before.
I've seen
If
the
it wasn't
house.
with you, I've been there.
Yeah, I visited the house. I've never investigated
Oh,
or been
okay.
inside. It's
Yeah.
a fairly small house. But these Indians, this Indian raiding party abducts the mother and child,
Yes.
takes them to Canada. So it's a long journey.
Right.
In the interim, somehow the mother ends up killing this Indian party
Right.
after they killed the child. And she scalped the Indians
Yeah.
because their scalp was worth money. There was a bounty on it.
Right.
So she works her way back from Canada off of this bounty
Wow.
money back to Haverhill, back to the Dustin House.
Wow.
This Essex County Ghost Project that kind of controls that thinks it's very haunted, and they've done a lot of investigations and so forth. So, anyways,
I'd love to go.
We can go out and do that,
Yeah.
and now we're bringing a medium side to that
yeah,
also,
I love
which
that.
I'm real
I'm
excited
already
about
getting
that.
all excited for it.
Yeah, and I think that season 2 should deliver probably 4, 5, or 6 of those next year.
Right,
I think.
right.
And we're also got some really new talent lined up to come in next
We
year.
do,
You know,
yes.
I know that you know the Queen of Paranormal.
Yes.
CC the Huntress.
Yes.
She'll be on. She was coming on this year and had a change in plans at the very last minute. She's a character.
Yes.
There's no doubt about that. But she wants to come on. She's just rolled out believe it or not, a comic book.
Really? I
Yeah, it's
didn't
pretty
know
interesting.
that.
Yeah, it's
that's
pretty interesting.
great.
And if any of our viewers want any information, just post something on our Facebook page,
Yes.
Paranormal and Beyond, a TV show, and I'll put you in touch with Cece, and I'm sure she'll be
That's
happy
awesome.
to. Yeah, but she's got a regular little comic book.
Oh, I have to look that up.
So that's pretty
great.
cool.
I know. And
you
we're
know-
looking for ideas too. We've asked for ideas and what the public wanted to see or wanted us to talk about too. So we're also looking for suggestions as well.
Yeah, I've been very unlucky, but I've been trying to get the witches on.
I know.
That's been a request of mine, and I understand it. And I would put this out there to anybody that wants to come on the show.
Right.
Go to our YouTube
Yes.
and watch all of the shows.
Yes.
Watch all of the shows. And understand that Debbie and I are not here to criticize people.
Never.
We're not here to get you in front of the cameras and dispel what you do.
Right.
That's not what we're about.
Right.
We really are about letting you come on here and tell your story.
Exactly.
You know,
Everyone has a story.
You have a story. You tell your story, and it's all positive.
Right.
Nobody's gonna criticize you,
Or
and nobody's.
disbelieve and say that, oh, we don't
Yeah,
believe it. Yes.
exactly.
One thing I thought about was, because I mentioned my kids that they're ages 15 and 13, and Chelsea had said, well, can we go on the show sometime? I said, you know what? Yes.
Why couldn't they? Sure.
I said,
Sure.
They're my kids. I can allow it.
Yeah, as long as you sign
And
off,
I
right.
said, how interesting, to have that point of view
I think it'd be
from
wonderful.
the younger generation
Yep.
about what this all is. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And they interview so well. So I just think it would be interesting sometimes to get a different perspective,
Right.
from the youngins and see what they say.
I think that's a great
That
idea.
we don't even.
No, I think that's a great idea
Yes.
because with TV and the internet, I have an 11-year-old grandson,
Yes.
and
yes.
between TV and the internet, he actually knows more than his grandfather knows.
Oh,
now,
my gosh,
I'm
it's so
I'm
true.
hitting
Yes.
senility, so that's not a big deal. I mean, he's not overly bright, but
Yes.
he does know about a lot of these
He
things.
does,
just from
yes.
what he can gather.
So it's interesting to have a couple of kids,
Yeah, I
just
think that there is a
question
lot.
them and find out what they think. Doesn't have to be an entire hour, but it would be so interesting to get that feedback from them, what
Right.
they think about paranormal.
Yeah,
what they
and
think about
especially your two
Bigfoot,
children, because
Yeah.
they've been involved
They've
in
had
the
a lot of
Titanic, and
experiences,
they've
yes.
had spirit guide experiences,
Yes,
and
yeah.
we've never heard this from
Right.
a younger person.
Right.
We
Yeah.
always seem to go to the people who've been doing a lot of years.
Right.
And I think it's like our guests out there. I put it on Facebook all the time. If you've had an experience, whether it be UFO experience, whether it be experience with spirits,
Yes.
an experience as a medium, something that a UFO experience, come on the show and tell us about it.
Absolutely.
Because that's truly what people want to hear is true life experiences.
Right.
I think that, and I've said this, I do a lot of presentations. I'm doing 2 in Londonderry in the next couple of weeks. And I always say to people, I always get the question,
Yeah.
is TV real or fake?
Right,
Okay.
right.
And being on TV, I'm telling you, it's 100% real. No.
Right.
The situation is you have to understand that most programs have to put a show out every week. And if
Right.
you're on any of the large networks, that's a very big expense.
Right.
And they're in the business of what? Entertainment.
Exactly.
They're
Right.
really not in the business of education. They're not
Right.
in the business of information.
Yes.
They're in the business of entertainment.
Right.
So if you watch a show and you really like it, then enjoy it. Stop
Yes.
worrying about whether the
It's
shadow
real or
was
not
fake or real.
It's so true.
Enjoy the
Yes.
show. People watch 2.5 Men or whatever they watch, and
Yes.
that's not real. I
Right.
hate to tell you that, but
Yes.
it's not. But you enjoy it, and you put yourself in the character. You think you know somebody like that.
Right.
So
It's true.
is it real? Some are and some aren't.
Right.
But watch it and have fun with it. That's the
Yes,
key to
it
me,
is.
at least for big television. Programs like this, when we go out and do Essex County Ghosts Project
Yes.
at Dustin House, what we're going to do is show
can't
you
wait.
exactly what they find.
Right.
That's what we're going
Right.
to show you. You're going to have to step
So
back as
true.
our audience and say, I buy it, I don't
I
buy
don't
it.
buy it. Right.
Because that's not what we're here to do. We're not here to prove to anybody
And we don't even know if we're going to get anything.
That's right.
Because, we went to, was it the Searles Castle in Methuen? When you and I went there, I don't remember if that's what it was.
Yeah,
It was
I know
the big
in
town
Haverhill.
hall.
Yeah.
And we worked there, and we had before. I've never been in there before in my life, and we were talking to a general, and we were getting a lot of feedback on the instruments about
Right.
the questions we were asking. All of a sudden, he shut down cold, and I said to you, "He's all done. He doesn't want to talk anymore," and he didn't. He surely did not make any machinery, technical devices go off any more than that. He was done, and it was unbelievable.
The story I tell about that, I want to say Seals Castle, but it wasn't Seals.
I thought it was Searles,
Searles, yeah.
Searles.
Well, if you're from Haverhill, you can
Yeah.
Google it, but the castle in Haverhill, you and I were standing in a
Yes,
hallway.
right.
And we had not seen a lot of activity.
True story.
And there was a smoke detector.
Yes.
Do you recall this?
Yes.
Up on the wall. Mm-hmm. And we were chatting, and you said, if you're with it, you thought somebody was in, you said, if you're with us, give us a sign. And the smoke detector lit up. Do you recall this?
It was red and green.
Red and green.
Yes.
It would go red and go green.
Yes,
And there were two
correct.
colors. And every time you asked a question, it lit up to that.
Lit the colors, yeah.
Well, when the evening was over, the caretaker was closing up, and you and I were chatting with him, and I said to him, he said, "How'd you do?" And we said, "Well,
Oh,
we got
yes.
a lot of activity on, interesting enough, on a smoke detector,
Right.
with the lights on it." He said, "What smoke detector?" I said, "Well, the one down
It was
in
the
the
exit
hallway."
lights, the floodlights, yeah.
And he said, "Oh, that's not working."
Oh, that's right.
Remember? He said, "No, that doesn't work." I said, "Yeah,
I
it
do
does.
remember
We
this.
have it on camera.
Right,
We still have
right,
that
yes.
in the archives, but
Yeah.
it actually lit
That is so
red
true.
and green." He
we
said,
were in the basement.
Yeah, we were in the
That was a
basement.
basement hallway.
Right.
You're right.
and he said,
yes.
"No, it couldn't have went red and green. The only bulb in there
Is a clear bulb. I do remember this, yes.
So we go down there, and he
Yeah.
takes it off the wall.
Yes.
And there is no bulb.
And there's no bulb. I
There was no
swear
bulb, but it was
this
lighting up red
happened.
and green
Yes,
to
and that's
certain
what-
questions. Remember?
Now, we had, I think, 5 people with us.
Yeah, we did.
In that area who
Yeah.
all witnessed the same thing.
Yep.
And we were talking to, in spirit, it was a young man. He
Right.
was like 15-ish years old.
Yep.
And there's a cemetery close nearby there where he was telling us that that's where he was from and blah,
Right.
blah, blah. And he was awesome. He answered
Yeah.
our questions, and he used, the red was no, green was yes, and it was
Right.
perfect. But when they're done, they're done. Like, there's no more talking and everything else. It was great.
Yeah.
I had a great time that night.
When we talk about mediums, another story that comes to mind, I was in the church in the Plains. We
Yes.
were doing a presentation, and we had over 150 people.
Wow.
And there were a few girls in the front row, younger ladies, probably in their 30s.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them, before the show kicked off, the presentation kicked off, she came up and said to me, she was kind of in tears, and she said, "I have a question to ask. My dad passed about a year ago. He's come back to my sister on 3 occasions,
Right.
sitting on the bed,
Right.
and that type of thing. But he's never come to me. Why is that?"
So she
And I-
asked, how'd you answer her?
Well, here's what I said to her, and I'm not a medium, so
Right,
I
right.
told her that. I said, "You're asking the wrong person, really." But
Yeah.
but my thought is this: I have seen energy, negative energy, that causes spirits to just shut down.
Yes.
Because their attitude is, "I'll come through to you if you believe I'm coming through.
Right.
But if you don't believe at all, I'm not wasting my time to prove to you."
Right.
Because I said to her, they have nothing to prove.
Right.
We need to take it from that perspective. They
Right.
don't have to prove to
It's
us
true.
they're there.
Yeah.
So she said, "Well, I'm not really a big believer." She said, "My sister
Yes.
is, and I'm with her." Well, again, for our audience, to make a very long story short, within an hour of the presentation was done, we were kind of mulling around doing an investigation, and she came up to me with tears rolling down her cheeks. She said, "I have something to tell you. My father came through to me, sitting in the front row."
Yeah.
She said, "And he touched my hair like he always did, and said," ready for this? She heard the words, "I love you also."
Oh.
And she was crying.
Yeah.
And she said, "I can't thank you enough." I said, "Well, I appreciate that, but you're thanking the wrong person."
Right.
See, because
right.
I didn't do anything for you.
Exactly.
What you did was,
She did it
you
for
sat in
herself.
the dark for a few
Right.
minutes and opened yourself up.
And correct. Right.
And you allowed him to come in.
Correct. Yep.
That's what happened.
That is
Your
it.
sister did
That's
that
it.
much earlier in the situation.
game,
you know,
yes, it's
But it
true.
was, those are the certain things I think you do over the years that you
You
just
do.
never forget,
You
because
do, and you have to be open to it. You know,
You do.
You have to be open to having an experience, and worry and stress and anxiety actually block it out too. So,
Right.
so we have to let go of worry, stress, and anxiety. If you're doing an investigation, if we're working with any kind of energy when we do our shows, we have to leave everything out the door.
Right.
We cannot bring it in here because then we're not going to have a great experience taping the show
Right.
and getting to know all these people. So that was a great explanation that you gave her, because only they can do it for themselves.
Yeah, and
you
it
know, just have
worked.
an open mind. Just be
Well,
open to have an experience.
again, great season one.
Yes, so
Congratulations.
excited.
I can't thank our guests and everybody. Art,
I know.
especially, has done a great job. Thank you so much, Elisa Clater
Yes.
puts those candles together. So thank you for that. We appreciate that. And again, if you want one of those candles,
Yes.
send me an email, paranormalnh@yahoo.com. I'd be happy to forward it on for you, onto her for you. And
our
season 2 will
Facebook
start in a
page.
couple of weeks,
Yes.
right, with our big kickoff.
Yes.
So, and we are going to have guests. So if you're
Right.
listening to this show, you see this show on YouTube, and you live in New Hampshire.
Yes,
I mean,
and
unless you really want to
Facebook.
travel.
Yes.
You're welcome to come on. We will have limited seating
Right.
to probably 12 or 15
that's what I'm
people,
guessing.
depending where we do
Yeah.
it. So if you really want to come on, email Debbie or
Yes.
email myself, or go
Yep.
to our Facebook page and Paranormal and Beyond, the TV show, and post it on that page.
Yes.
And we'll get in touch with you, make sure you get a seat. So,
Thank you.
and
Have a
thank you
great
for
rest of the
watching,
summer.
and stay tuned next year for Paranormal and Beyond. Good night.
Thank you.